You're with Bruce and Steve. It's time for Purple Haze yet again, and we're very excited this evening, the first of a two-part special on Purple Haze, with a gentleman who is a songwriter, guitarist, producer, singer, was in one of the defining bands of the 1980s, one of my favourite bands, and has gone on recently to do a new project, but we're going to talk about primarily his solo career, the band that he did play in, and some of his thoughts on life. And we welcome to Purple Haze Peter Koppes.
From the church.
From the church. Well,
thank you very much.
Ex of the church.
Yes, I should make that known now. Yeah, I don't represent their modus operandi or manifesto anymore.
Well, it was a 40-year marriage, so you started there.
Not really. I had a few affairs in the last. But I was very honest about them. I said they weren't satisfying me, so I went, out, away from the fold on two official occasions and two unofficial occasions.
Yes.
And so this is the fifth one, but this is the definite one because it was never acrimonious before, whereas I call it acrimonious because it sounds like I've got an emotional attachment, but when I've had enough of something, I just move on. I'm not bitter in any way at all, but certainly I have no reason to have any association with them anymore, whereas, I did in the past. Mm. In the past breakups, I still had some contact.
Well, you are involved with a new project, which is fantastic. The band's
Thank you for saying that.
The band's called Syncretism, but that's going to be part two of our special. And we'll do a track by track on the new album, which Steve and I are loving very much.
Yeah, very much.
Which is a good bookend, really, because my partner in Syncretism was the guitarist in the band I was in Canberra with the singer from the church before I left, and then they left him. Ah. And now I'm working with him again. So it's like and I always wondered why he probably wouldn't have even been in the church, or we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But yeah, look, that's it is a great album, and we look forward to presenting that on Purple Haze. But if we can just go back to 1987 when you released
way back,
you released an EP. Titled When Reason Forbids, a Requiem, 3-track EP, and with obviously the song When Reason Forbids and 2 instrumentals. What can you tell me about the recording of that EP?
Well, I was about to record a single with EMI that, as you know, Steve had done some solo releases through EMI, and they invited me to do one, which was going to be Into the Bright Light, which is on my first album, and they'd heard that demo. My first album is actually the demos that they actually heard, and so I was going to be recording that with EMI, and then we ended our relationship with manager Michael Chugg, and he and at the same time, I think we ended our relationship with EMI. Yes.
Oh, right.
That's right. And we actually didn't have a recording deal, didn't even have a publishing deal, and because Warner Brothers America were our label at the time for Heyday and also for EMI in Australia. So we got dropped by EMI when Warner Brothers dropped the church, and then EMI dropped the church, and then I got dropped from doing my single with EMI, of course. Mm. And we ended up being very fortunate to be signed up by Arista Records, which is probably the most successful label in the world, really.
Was that Clive Davis?
Yeah, Clive Davis.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Yeah, he ran Columbia Records and then got fired. It's a very interesting story, unfairly. And he started Arista Records, and then they fired him, and then he became so successful he bought it back. And he sold it and was in management. There's a Netflix series about him that's phenomenal, and he would sign up people like with Columbia. He kept Bob Dylan on Columbia,
Yes.
even though they weren't selling records. And when he was in Arista, he signed up Whitney Houston, but he also signed up Lou Reed, Patti Smith, Iggy Pop, and the Church. So he had a real double awareness of music. He knew about commercialism, and he also knew about art.
Right.
And when we got signed up by Arista, the guy that fired us at EMI Australia got fired as well, because they thought that he missed we had a hit with Starfish on Arista. So I had that success. I'm not sure if my EP might have come out in 1987. It was around the same time, wasn't it?
It was. Yes, it was. Yeah, same time.
There was a little label out of a record shop on Bondi Beach, and I knew the owner there, and I said, oh well, maybe I should release a song through you. And I'm not sure if I made that, if a Requiem, or When Reason Forbids, a Requiem was recorded that time. But the story behind that song was that I was in the middle of recording the sequences, or there was a computer keyboard. I was very much into computer keyboards at that time. And I got a call as I'd finished the recording backing track. And I was told that our lighting guy, who was also the Hoodoo Guru's lighting guy and the Church lighting guy, and he had an aneurysm, that he knew, a brain aneurysm, and they said, well, you could have a big operation at risky, or you could just take it easy. And I got a call to say he'd passed away. Oh. And he was the only person that was kind of interested in my solo career. He'd say, what are you doing? What are you doing with your next song? And no one else had any interest, it seemed. And so I went out to, I lived on the Tamarama Point, which is the south part of Bondi Beach, which once I went out there, and Elton John was actually recording a song called, I think it was called Life or something out there, or song on his white piano out on that point. So that was pretty unusual. Yep. But it's a very beautiful place and very inspiring on that headland. And I just wrote a poem to Greg Hickman is his name, and that was the lyrics to When Reason Forbids. And so I came back to this because I wanted to somehow reconcile it, because I never knew anyone who died. And so I came back to the house, and then I sat in front of my workstation again, and then just sang those lyrics straight over the song in one take. And I don't know where that came from, but that's the magic of music that we're all cultivating as artists. Trying to be there's something on the other side, or another dimension, where we're all kind of like, Bob Dylan always said every song's just there and they just fall out of the air if you let them in. And I've always maintained that too, just that you're a vehicle somehow, but obviously we change the message depending on who we are. There's an individuality there. But I thought I'll release that as a single, because that would really be a nice commemoration of one really amazing human being, a gentle person that was very special. And as time goes by, I realise they're quite rare. Yeah. And his parents were very happy with it. Made them quite happy.
Nature
Stuart Coope thought that he was managing Hoodoo Guru, thought that I was cowardly to put out a song like that because I wouldn't get criticised for because it was a requiem for someone, and I thought that was cheeky of him to say, but I kind of admired his honesty.
Weird thing to say, though.
Yeah. What? Oh well, I don't know. He's had a tumultuous relationship with the band. He befriended Richard and Steve in the church, and then they'd get, they were friends and they'd go around his place and smoke, after a show or something like that. And then he went and wrote really bad things about Steve after that because he was a journalist at the time.
Right.
You get that with journalists. You guys are journalists, aren't you?
Not technically.
Yeah, no, we're fans and we don't get paid, so that's the big difference.
The thing is, when you put in print, I usually don't do interviews with anyone anymore unless it's written. If it's a written interview, I'll ask for the questions in writing and I'll write the answers because apart from being misquoted and people don't understand my concepts quite often either, so they write their own ideas into my concepts. So that's how I do written interviews now.
Well, on Purple Haze, you have freedom of speech here, and you have a platform. It's your program, so you can...
Down with the government!
Edit.
And there will be no debate later in the program.
Even if the responses are representative of the station, or the DJ is not necessarily the station.
There's a couple of instrumental tracks on that EP as well, which are outstanding, which I believe also went onto the first album. So one was At the Castle and the other was Air, which I still can't get those songs out of my head. And they're in a place, and for me, even though some would say, oh, that's dated, it hasn't for me. I don't know why that is.
Who would say it's dated?
I don't know. Some people would say, oh, well, there's a drum machine playing there and that sounds like this era. And you know how people like to pigeonhole things and put things in a place, or they like to, put them in a category.
I sort of find that difficult to go along with a bit because a lot of those sounds are sort of being rediscovered again at the moment. So it's actually
the funny thing,
very
isn't it?
current, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. The TR08, T808, that drum machine, and the Roland drum machine. But I didn't use one of those. I had like a drum machine from a DX7, and I had the funny thing is, my first attraction to music was an organ, like a church organ, pretty much. Yep. Or a Hammond organ, which you can make sound like a church organ. When I was in churches, they had those organs, not the big church organs, but that was my interest in music. There was always other instruments around my house, and my father would rehearse with his band. I was never interested in any except until a Hammond organ arrived there for a couple of weeks, and when his keyboard player was moving, and then I went, that's what I want to do that. And the song Air is actually the very first Casio electronic keyboard.
Wow.
It's around the time of the first drum machines. That was the first electronic keyboard that had onboard sounds like 8 buttons. And interestingly, it's like for a music, I don't know if I'm going to go off point here too much, but people think Nights in White Satin is an orchestra, but it's a mellotron, and sometimes orchestras can sound really cheesy, and I especially avoid, not avoid them, but I know that the difference, because we did the Opera House with a 70-piece orchestra, and sometimes I've got an effects rack that we let the orchestra go at the end, halfway through the song at the end of one set, and I carried it on with my orchestral effects instead, which people think are all tapes. When we play live, there's all this orchestral mellotron sound in the band, particularly on the last two records by the Church. You'll hear it. It's like an electronic mellotron.
Right.
But it's even better because it's organic, because it doesn't actually it's not tapes. It's actually, I can control it through the guitar. It's a harmonizer, and I've got a pairing of a couple of rack devices, which I can do it in a pedal now by coincidentally. But that sound of orchestral sounds is what's always driven me. And I play guitar like a keyboard player as well. I have all these ringing notes, like keyboard players can ring notes. And the church sound is pretty much me trying to make my guitar sound like a church organ, in fact, or a carillon. When I really get it right with echoes, it's like a carillon and a mellotron. With Air, I was, and you say it sounds very old-fashioned. It particularly is, if that's not an idiom of a Baroque era, because Baroque is another particularly rocky classical music era, actually Bach and people like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that Baroque influence, I think, is on the last Church album too. And the arpeggios of chords, that's a Baroque idiom.
Actually, it's interesting how many musicians quote Bach as an influence.
Well, Ritchie Blackmore is the best lead guitarist that's ever existed, apart from Hendrix, and he transcribed Bach, and he and the keyboard player John Lord from Deep Purple, who was obviously one of a huge influence for me too, because of the sound of the organ, but also his competence. There's no more competent musicians than those two ever. I would say. Everyone's taking something from them. They've never bettered those guys, and they would have fun with Bach and chuck in these devil's note flat fifths with the people blues notes into Bach. And that's Ritchie Blackmore's style. Yeah, so very technical. I'm very aware of all of the technical side of music, because I got taught by I had a session with a jazz musician called George Goller from the Don Burrows quintet, I think, and he told me the science of the music, which is the classical science, which I've since realised has all been distorted through time. And so At the Castle is pretty much a salute to my influences and classical music. So you can say it's old-fashioned. I'll take that as a compliment.
Good.
And then And then the other one at the castle
Yeah.
was me going into the writing room for artists at Castle Music, a publisher
Yes.
I was with. And so I just used their equipment there, and it's just a DX7 keyboard, which is one of the first digitally programmable keyboards, you know, and the whole thing is that sequencer keyboard. And so I was just demoing the keyboard really, and it ended up, you know, being that song. I thought that it was kind of had a bit of a swing and a groove to it, so I thought maybe they'd be interested in getting me to write with some of their artists, but they never did. I think they were in a bit of a change of management and stuff like that. But so I just thought I'll put those out so they don't detract from the concentration of the lyrics. Thing. I suppose reflecting on it, my instincts would have been, this is, you know, have to do both sides of a vinyl record, so I'll put instrumentals on the other side rather than diffuse the message on the A side of the Requiem.
Fascinating.
Interesting.
That's the short answer.
And just with the church, though, there are a lot of instrumental tracks over the course of that journey. Was that your influence to bring in a more of an instrumental, song to a church album, and or flip side of a 7-inch?
Not necessarily. I have to say Steve Kilby is a bona fide musical genius.
Yeah.
And that I parallel him to try and be humble with it. But certainly we're each other's foil perfectly. I thought, for some things on some occasions. He had power and had strong, had the strength, influence to take the band in different directions, which I didn't necessarily approve of. And I've been reflecting on it now recently, playing some of the stuff and trying to come to terms in my mind what I really, if I still feel the same, and I definitely do, and I congratulate myself for putting up with it, because I think that was one of the reasons the band has lasted 40 years is because I was tolerant. Yes. And when I did leave, I wasn't bitter or anything like that, and I was able to come back and reacquaint. And but certainly I've got very strong. I always was amazed that my solo records sound like the Church, and none of their solo records sound like the Church. So I was always amazed that people never pegged that I was such a strong influence in the band's sound.
That's really interesting, because that's what I was going to say, that of all of the solo albums, yours is the closest to Church sounding.
Mm-hmm. You were saying that off air before.
Yeah. So,
and if they like that, that's great. But I still prefer, like Steve, his vocal delivery probably inspired me. Not his kind of style of speech, but the fact that he was a baritone. Yes. And that inspired me because I wanted my songs have message, and and I suppose Nick Cave was the same thing, but so I wrote, I sang, but I could, as you hear in a Requiem, I sing very, very, I got all those every vocal on that is me, and I've got high vocal lines there that are, I could have probably sang in that key, like if I was like the heavy rock guitars. I never understand how big rock bands like AC/DC and Guns N' Roses, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath have these very high vocal range singers, so supposedly masculine. They're supposed to be very masculine, aren't they? Machismo kind of bands in a way. I don't know, that's the image they have. I know they're not really in their own, but the image is. I can sing all those ranges, but I've drifted off the point there, haven't I suppose? Steve, I'll give him his credit where it's due. Yeah. But I only ever had one foot in the band and one foot out, and that was from the days in Canberra when we worked together, and I knew he was a particular character, and he and I just as I said when I left, I said. I don't know if I should drop this one. I said, I've been using you all this time. and now I'm leaving.
Oh, that's funny.
He provoked me. He provoked me. He said, he mocked me. He said, you leave the band and go and teach all those kiddies, And I said, I'd rather teach grateful children than be around someone who's not grateful. And I said, I've just been using you. Now I'm leaving. Well, I might as well take this opportunity to make this statement, because a lot of people don't do many interviews anymore. They do an interview with a particular person that they appreciate, like Bob Dylan and that, and then they just circulate that, because it takes a lot of time doing interviews, and you waste a lot of time talking to people who don't understand anyway, and there's not a lot of publications around anymore. So this is I feel you and I have a good me. I can say anything here and you're not going to be offended because you understand it.
Absolutely.
The tone of it, because we know each other.
Indeed. Now, the first album was Manchild and Myth, released in 1988. We've got 3 songs programmed in, one of those being another instrumental track, but we'll start with a song called Take a Vow. What can you tell us about that song, which is one of my favourites from the album? Yeah,
well, the chorus is, I take a vow to seek love and beauty, if it didn't come naturally.
Yes.
I'm kind of like trying not to be too earnest with a very earnest message. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think, and I teach songwriting and things like that, and the whole lot. you should have wit and courage and hope. They're the three elements, you
Yes.
know, under a caveat of love, but that word's so diluted that you can't use it. You know, it's like nice, you know, those love and nice are words that don't have any meaning anymore. They're misused so much. But so yeah, that's pretty much it. And I know I often hear of it like a Roxy Music kind of song because I really loved Roxy Music, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely
we all do.
influence there,
Yeah.
isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. Track Comes as No Surprise.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that sounded like something that might have been around the Seance period, or did you write this particularly for this first solo album, or was that in your arsenal?
No. These would have been written throughout the time of the church. In fact, there was 2 songs I wrote amongst these that ended up as you know, my wife sings on some of those songs.
Yes.
Well, she wasn't my wife, didn't get married. I think we might have been married at the time, but marriage wasn't an institution that I particularly respected anyway.
Fair enough.
That's another story. But I'll call her my wife because she got upset when I didn't call her my wife on radio once when they asked about one of these songs that she sang, and we were in doing Remote Luxury, and so Steve and Richard played two of my songs at the behest of Michael Chugg, who wanted to record these songs for Melody. Her name is, and her artist name.
Yes.
And that was released at the same time as Michael Chugg. We left his management, so that was stillborn. If you to use a sad kind of analogy, and so those were two songs that were actually, and that's what also encouraged EMI to offer me probably at the same time I was going to do a solo song. That was around the same time, the Melody single. And the songs are about love. Like, I don't know whether it's, you know, I think the hardest thing is to be a romantic songwriter, actually. And my favourite songwriters are romantic, and they're not melodramatic or wet, aesthetic, you know, poppy things. So that song comes as no surprise. It's just trying to get another angle on love. Like, I'm a 60s kid. You know? I love the 60s and their tight lyrical and orchestrated songwriting. And so it comes as no surprise. If we fall in love, it comes as no surprise. It's just trying to put another take on love. And I do that quite a lot. I still do that now, you know. I love love songs. And if you look in the church, there's not many love songs, although Seance was kind of one album that there was, actually.
That's actually my favourite Church album.
Really?
Sales.
Well, it's funny that's Steve's solo album, pretty much.
Is that
He
right?
wrote everything, yeah. Because I was in Europe with my wife and having our first child, and so was Marty, waiting to tour with. I think it was the Psychedelic Furs. Funny enough, back then,
Yeah.
and we ended up touring. It got delayed, and we ended up on the Duran Duran tour. But we were waiting over there for months and months and months. And Steve was in love with this. Jennifer Kite, the newsreader from and so he wrote all of those songs in love,
Yeah, right. Interesting.
and and so he had good fuel and inspiration, and he'd learned how to arrange his own songs by that time because of all of the preceding albums,
Yes.
the two, and worked with producers and arrangement. We used to do all his arrangements, for him. And then he realised how to do it for himself, and so that's really the aficionados of him would agree with you. That's his best solo album. I'd call it a solo album because we just played everything on there. Everything pretty much was what he wrote, apart from the solos.
Interesting, because it is a real that album is a real departure from the previous, and then obviously the releases following.
Wasn't very successful, of course, but you get that. But I think it does epitomises all that's good and bad about him because he's very melancholy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed the last track, It Doesn't Change, and the outro on that track.
Mm-hmm.
And
it doesn't change.
Yeah. And Travel by Thought, I enjoyed that as well. So.
That was just thrown in.
Yeah.
As a band track, for the hell of it. It's kind of,
Anyway,
just a jam,
I've digressed and sent us over to the solo album of Kilby territory here.
Yeah.
So
that's okay. No, it's all part and parcel, and I think it's a good reflection on me to show that I'm not bitter, because other members of the band who've left won't talk about anything, and I think that reflects that they have an embarrassment, whereas I have no embarrassment, and I'm quite ruthless.
That's
or
fine.
Could be seen as quite ruthless about my determination or direction or trajectories, and so I don't mind. I think it reflects well on me to be so tolerant and fair.
Yes.
Not like politicians bitching. I'm so sick of politicians taking the partisan stand. I thought partisan was good, but it ain't.
Do you know that I can no longer look at our state premier? If he's on the TV, I just turn it off. I flick the station to something else. I can't stand it. Most of my time,
he's kind of really uptight, isn't he?
Very uptight, and
but they chose it. They're all egomaniacs. No one would take that job if they weren't egomaniacs, and they're not. They're certainly not Gandhi.
No, yeah. Who would want to be a politician? An
egomaniac.
Yeah, and they get corrupted, and then
which is probably
they could go into private business.
So many bad ones.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, no, that's it, because they're motivated by that, and all the agendas of all the people around them have the same greedy agenda and egotistical, and wanting to get in the limelight, because they make a lot more money in private industry, but they don't get the attention.
But the thing that I take umbrage to is that they severely impact your life. And
but you have to be considerate that they probably go into there with good intentions for the benefit of society, but then they get corrupted by all of the agendas of everybody else around them, and they find.
Correct.
I'm sure they come out of it beaten and bruised, and don't like to stay in it after they realise that their good intentions go wrong. So I kind of feel sorry for them.
Reminds me of that great quote, the road to hell is paved with people full of good intentions.
Yes, I get that a lot.
Yeah. Now the other track is an instrumental, Sahara. Can you tell me anything about that one from memory?
I'm just interested that you're going to play so many instrumentals. So you're not going to play Air and that at the Castle, are you?
Oh yeah, we're playing that as well. Yeah.
And these instrumentals.
Well, it's a 2-hour program. So
well, people will. The cynical side of it is that people will suggest that you don't think that my voice is as presentable.
Oh, no.
No, because that's a common thing.
Yeah,
see?
yeah.
That in the band, I had a cold on the first recording session for the first album for Unguarded Moment, I think it was, that song. And so they maintained that I should never sing on a church record forevermore.
Oh, really?
So, and I never was involved in doing harmony vocals or things like that. But there was a collusion, an alliance between the two other members for whatever reason, which probably was intimidation or jealousy or something like that. That's the only way I can come to terms with it, because I've proven that I can do it all on my own records anyway. In fact, I have to thank them. I wouldn't have a solo record if they were so non-inclusive, because I realised, well, I'm not going to get my own songs on the church record or work together as much as I'd like to. So I did my solo records. My whole solo career is thanking the collusion of that evil alliance, which, in time, reflecting on it, I thought it had happened a long time before now, and it still hasn't really happened, that people will realise the connection that, I don't need them. And, except for the fact of the lone wolf, as we mentioned before, a lone wolf sometimes has to hunt with the pack in winter, otherwise he'd starve himself. But I'm definitely a lone wolf, and that's my, not by choice necessarily, I just don't like to compromise myself, whatever that analogy is. It's not a bad one, is it, the lone wolf?
It is a good one.
And of course, the Syncretism album is Lone Drifters with a question mark, mind you, because that's a philosophical, thread through a lot of things for me in my life, and yet found a great partner in Syncretism. So looking back on it all, I what do they say? I'm vindicated. I will be vindicated, I believe, and I've arrived in a position where I'm really happy. I manage another artist called Mayer. Are we going to play any Mayer songs in this session?
No, that'll be in part two.
The Syncretism?
Yes.
In the later recordings?
Yep.
So this is all pretty much, I stopped writing songs around about 2000. And the only stuff I did after that was contributing to the church material that I sang the lyrics to songs that the band had written together, and they didn't finish the song, so I'd finish it, kind of thing, which you will be playing in this session as well, won't we?
Indeed, absolutely.
Can I ask, was there a particular reason why you did stop writing songs?
I had nothing left to say, and I wasn't getting enough attention for it, and they threw me off the dole.
Right.
They wanted to retrain me, so I had to go into teaching instead.
Right.
The selection of songs, we don't have something from every solo album, but I wanted to touch on this, which was From the Well. So was that a solo album or was that a band project that you had? I know you were playing with the keyboard player from Flowers, and you had Richard Plug playing drums. And
on the album after From the Well.
Yes.
From the Well was my breakup album with my wife, and I'd come back from America with a sequencer keyboard and wrote the album on the sequencer keyboard. I've written more songs on piano than guitar, actually. And so that was a breakup album, and we pretty much have been in America for 3.5 months making Starfish and then touring it for another 2 months. So that was not for the obvious things, you know. I wasn't, what do you say, misbehaving on the road or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the separation and no Skype and things like that probably made it a bit difficult. I don't know, a bit difficult. But so I wrote that song and the lyrics. So I was my wife was on that one as well, and I was representing her state of mind, hopefully in writing lyrics for her to sing on that record. Ironically, my daughter and her musical husband, and they're both songwriters, have done a cover of Only Wait. And that's like the breakup song. And I thought, you've just got married. Why would you want to do a cover of a song about the breakup of your mother and me, you know? and they preferred that to the other song that I sang at their wedding called Our Love, which was on the first album.
Yeah.
And so, because I think it's because it was a duet. but I think it's a foreboding. That song. Yeah. And we were in the process of breaking up, so it was a foreboding. Only way it was a foreboding of, you know, what could or might not happen. If we only wait, this will subside, you know.
Yes.
Mysterious that you are, guided by good sense and a star, knowing and following sheer beauty that's your charm, and our love is the power to treasure and to shower.
Iridescence, which has got the song Peak to Peak on it, which is just a stellar sounding song in my view. And, you know, fantastic guitars and unbelievably good vocals, Peter, on that song.
Yes, well, we had to re-record that because EMI was going to put that out under a special label, development label with Phantom Records, which became MGM now. So, and it had stereo vocals that when you put in mono, they could cancel. So we had to remix that one. But they were going to release that, and then that development label folded, so it didn't come out. And those three songs were kind of the mongrel songs from the album that came after it, called Water Rights, and they were all recorded at the same time.
Yes.
In I know it might have been a couple of days actually.
Yeah.
But with the drummer from the church.
Yep.
You know, and I'd written all the songs, you know, demoed them all, and they pretty much played what I wrote. Apart from their skills as great musicians and geniuses, they're all geniuses. Like Richard Poog, of course, from the church, is a genius drummer, a genius artist, and sometimes geniuses suffer, you know, states of mind that was one of the reasons why he probably didn't continue with the band, but he didn't detract from the fact that he is an artistic genius in that field. And then the keyboard player from Icehouse, Anthony Smith, from the very first incarnation of Flowers Icehouse.
Yes.
He probably suffered the same thing. I never really worked it out, but the song Destination, which is the opening track on Starfish, he actually wrote that with us.
Wow.
He was playing piano, and I always maintained he should have got a writing credit for that because he's a great collaborator. He just passed away in the last few years, sadly.
Oh, really?
And the bass player from that session was in Celibate Rifles, and Damien Lovelock, who's also another amazing human being. Yeah. And that was a great band, Celibate Rifles. He passed away in the last few years too. And the bass player, Jim, who's still with us, he is a fantastic bass player and a great singer. When we played live, this became the live band later on. But I took out a big loan to pay for that album because I had my first two albums released in America. From the Well was released on TVT alongside Pretty Hate Machine with Trent Reznor.
Yes.
Who since said he wanted to get off that label because everything on it was shit, you know. And I thought that's pretty typical of a genius like Trent Reznor to have such a miserable attitude to existence and life that's never changed to this day. Same as Tom York, you know, the other musical genius that I regard as yardsticks of genius in the modern world, actually, and not many others. But they're both so miserable lyrically. I can't get over it. I can't figure out why. And that's why I wouldn't like to call myself a genius, because they're usually miserable. You know, I don't know what it is. And anyway, so we recorded that whole album, but I couldn't finish it in the budget, so I just put out those three songs.
Sounds of the clash can be heard, echoing up through the years' winding streets. Calm isolation to sweet penetration, living on thought need to breathe. The hermit within on his chin closes the world from inside her curtain. Roisted from beers, the celibate says cannot be great or misbehave. Welcome to the human race. Death of the mountain down. Death of the mountain down.
tipped away at finishing off the album up in Byron Bay at the Music's farm, which was closing down.
Yes.
Because that was the end of the era of studios, and the guy running it was a really great guy. And, or not running it, the engineer there was a really great guy, and he kind of like didn't charge me for the studio unless I got a deal in America, which I didn't get for that album. So they didn't charge me because it was run down, and we were kind of patching it together to keep it going. One of the mastering machines have the plates of electronics that they just switched around for different channels to keep each of the channels working. but you know, I didn't mind, you know, because in the middle of Byron Bay, and my family's up there, and I had plenty of time, and we got it done. And he was a great guy to work with too. That engineer on that one. The two engineers I had on those were great. The one that started the backing tracks, we called the backing tracks. He's kind of the standard engineer that worked with all of the later church songs as well. The last, you know, 4 or 5 albums, and the acoustic ones as well. So when I find good people, you know, I really stay with them, and those are really great people, you know.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. So and then we went out and played with that band, and did a few shows around Australia, and supported Jonette Napolitano from the Concrete Blonde, and she liked us so much. She took us out on their boat cruise for Mushroom Records in support of the award for the Joey song, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were well appreciated, and everyone in that band loved that band too, and still, you know. But of course, the way the cards land, you know.
Another great band that you're in, only briefly, but with Richard, was the Wigmen.
Yes, that's the Damien Lovelock from Celibate Rifles lead singer, and he let me play my solo songs with that band live. Yes. So we did his album, then we went on the road and played shows with, and so I sang about 4 songs each night of my solo catalogue. Your first album,
yeah.
Well, you know, he liked them, you know.
Well, that was a great album. It's a wig world from memory.
I did some of my best guitar solos.
Yeah.
In the 80s, you weren't allowed to do guitar solos, so I tried to hide, you know, guitar solos, except on my solo stuff. You know, like there's a song called Thank You and On Wings of Love that are on that Water Rights album that have extended guitar solos, like half of each of those songs is a guitar solo, even though there might be lyrics over the top of it or a choir or something like that, but I wasn't grandstanding it. But the Wigman, he wanted me to play guitar solos, and I played some great guitar on that.
Well, we played the song Harper's Bazaar yesterday on RPP. How about that?
He's quite political, isn't he? You know, like he's a perfect punk.
Oh, absolutely. Surf
of course,
punk.
Celibate Rifles is a joke on Sex Pistols, you know, Celibate Rifles. So, and they were a punk band, but they were progressive punk.
Agreed.
And the Surf people really loved them, and of course, that was a great band, I liked watching them. Smart, they weren't dumb.
No.
There's so many dumb bands.
Yeah, I agree. The fourth solo album was released in 1998, titled Love Era Irony, and
that's a double-titled album because I couldn't work out which title to pick. I even went to I'd thought of a title and then I'd forgotten it. I actually went to a hypnotherapist to figure out if they could find out what the title was that I thought it was, you know, and they couldn't hypnotize me. So I just thought I'll use both the titles, you know, Love Era and Irony. And now that was a dangerous thing philosophically, because what I courted with that was the most ironic love thing you could imagine, because I was really happy out of the church, which, you know, that Water Rights album was done. I left the church because I love the band more than the church. So, and then I couldn't continue it. So I made that Love Era Irony album in a penthouse apartment in Bondi Beach after I'd moved out of my marital home into that apartment with my wife's ex-husband. And then her boyfriend that my wife was seeing at the time, he moved in as well. So we called it the ex-husbands club there, you know. but they were French. My wife and her ex-husband were Belgian, so that the French have a different perspective, and they both grew up in Africa, in the Congo actually, so they even had a more worldly, native, natural approach to life. So anyway, we were all living there, and I had a lot of people came and visit. And this young kid got expelled from high school who was a big church fan, so he moved in too, and his parents were ex-junkie alcoholics and that, so they thought maybe it'd be a good environment to be around me.
Yes.
From a psychedelic rock band. Anyway, so I had a recording studio there, and he used my record collection and as a university, and I showed him how to record, and he recorded songs, and they were really, really good. He wrote lyrics and songs, but he didn't think they were, and to this day he's never released anything, although he's even played with Steve Lucas in X and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but he kind of continued with whether it's genetically something, a persuasion. He ended up always in drugs. And but we wrote some. So I let him write some stuff with me, or art should be not ageist. It should not be racist and all that. So we wrote some stuff, and then he was like 18-year-old. He was a left-handed guitarist who could play drums because he played drums, and he played right-handed though.
Interesting.
And the irony was I was going out with an 18-year-old girl at the same time who was left-handed and could play drums, but she played right-handed drums and right-handed guitar. And she came to interview me for a church fanzine when I wasn't in the church. She sought me out when she was 17. And then, and then so we became friends. And then in the end, when she was 18, she wanted to be my girlfriend. And my favourite party trick was people would come around and thought I was a dirty old man. And she'd play my guitar parts, to church songs in front of them, and that would shut their mouth. They kind of go, well, they must have something in common. Yeah, but that's not the real irony of it. But the irony was that her and this 18-year-old other boy ended up together. And just as I released that album.
Well, therein lies the title, Love Era Irony. There's a song on there called Celebration. What's that one about?
Well, when I walked out of the relationship, and this is a heavy, heavy story. Like, her mother died shortly before all of this, and I felt I was her father had already died, and I felt like I was her guardian and protector as much as, and I dedicated that song to her, Celebration, as I walked out the house, and I said, just be careful. Because we weren't living together, but I was living in the Blue Mountains. I was staying with her. Her mother, she lived on Rose Bay.
Okay.
Right on the waterfront. Yep. She was worth several $1 million.
Wow.
She owned property and shops and stuff like that. She inherited from her mother, and this young fella and her, they kind of like together, and I kind of felt like I couldn't walk out of there and just leave it like that. I even left my studio there for them to record songs together, and we've maintained friendship, all of us, after that.
I told you about the strife, and you said that's tough. I don't talk about it. Then it's some company, not a toy. And you don't know that cat about. You don't know or care about it. It's a celebration. It's a celebration. It's a celebration. And she tears it away. This party is going straight to my head. Every story, something about it. I can't remember the way she mouths it. It's a celebration. It's a celebration. words float like muses, a sentient chooses, so as I can find the right set that'll touch your lines. Speak to me how the will is wrong here, to what I have to reach. But baby, you needn't hurry, not more than anything. It's a celebration. It's a celebration.
Well, okay. I might as well tell you the truth because this is all included in the songs because I was in love with a punk rock priestess from the inner city Sydney punk scene called Maria Gilvorko, who co-wrote that song Further. It was on the EP. As I say, the EP Iridescence had Peak to Peak and two other songs that kind of really didn't fit on the album.
Yes.
And so she co-wrote that song, and we'd written other stuff together, but it hadn't been released. So, and she became my muse. She was my new muse, and I've written like three of the albums that were pretty much about her, really. Or two. The next two albums are definitely about her, and which is one of the reasons why probably that young 18-year-old boy thought that he had entitlement with my girlfriend because they both went to the top private schools in Sydney, Scots College and McGill. It's very ironic, really, really ironic. It's not what you imagine. Make a good book if I could be bothered writing it. But it's about, that's what the album's about. I write about my life and my experiences, and I'm very courageous with my experiences and try to be as compassionate. And as we talked about before, you know, the unconditional love aspect that's associated with the Theosophist society and any religion supposed to be. And I try to maintain that. And I thought I have a natural tendency for it and try to prove it in songwriting and in my life. And I believe I have, actually. So how's that for irony? Love era. So I released the record, then I started my own label with MGM, put it out, did an album with the singer from the church and the drummer from the church, because the guitarist from the church wouldn't let me join the band for Magician Amongst the Spirits because he needed the money for his gold-digging wife in London or something like that. Not that they got it, and he got kicked out of his flat and moved in with the mother-in-law who kicked him out. So he got his justice there. And so we made the Reformation album, which most people call a really good church album. And then he joined the Reformationists, which is how the biography about Steve Kilby presents it too, actually. And then when I returned to church, so in that period in the middle, I did the Love Era Irony album. And I ended up back with that girl, the punk rock princess. I don't know, princess, I don't say that in a bad way, I don't think. No. She was a genius, absolute genius, but she was a paranoid schizophrenic, and she passed away in the last 3-4 years. Oh, bit of a theme going here, isn't it?
Yeah, there is.
I'm the guest.
The next album was in 2002 called Simple Intent.
Yes.
What can you tell us from that era? So that's
all the songs are about that girl.
Right. Okay. So
my muse, my punk rock muse, which we had a on again, off again relationship.
Yes.
Metaphorically and literally. Do you know that joke?
Yes.
Yes. You do, right? I better tell for the public. You know, there's a guy met this girl and he offered her his honour, and she honoured his offer. So it was honour offer all night long.
You tell it well.
Thank you very much. It's one of my faves, that one.
It's a good one.
That's good.
There's some... Australians are great for jokes. So I think, I grew up in Canberra and I thought everyone knew as many jokes as we knew in Canberra, but only Canberra people know as many jokes as I know for some reason. and professional comedians, which might have even come from Canberra.
Some jokes you can't say anymore. We've all come a bit, we've all got gags on us.
I still try. That politically correctness thing, but I still tell some of those jokes to exemplify the maybe or racism or sexism or homophobia. I still tell those jokes, because what people don't realise, these minorities have some really fucked people in them. Like if you watch the series the First Australians on SBS, the Aborigines, the Aboriginal rebels who are defending the rights of Aborigines and then going into the bush and that, were being tracked by other Aboriginals who'd sold out to the white people to go and track. They would never have been found if they hadn't been tracked by other Aborigines. So let's not pretend that these minorities are all blessed, because there's some real, as I say, some people are shit,
Completely agree.
Or sexual persuasion or gender or whatever.
Well, you know what they say, you get good and bad in all groups, so yeah.
Yep, exactly. Now, there's a couple of songs...
Some people say more bad than good.
Now, there's a couple of songs...
We'll find out. This coronavirus is going to really flush out truth, isn't it?
It will flush out the truth. Yep, absolutely. There's a couple of songs that I just wanted to talk about. One song being Spirit March. What can you tell me about that one?
It's an instrumental, which I'm fond of, as you said. I instigated a few instrumentals with the church, I suppose.
Yes.
As well, like film, definitely.
Great song, yep.
And they are some of my favourite songs, with the church, absolutely. But that would look like I didn't really like the singer's lyrics or vocal delivery, which might be true at times. I'll leave it that there. And Spirit March was an instrumental, and it's an EBow. On Under the Milky Way, I used an EBow, which is an electronic violin bow. And so you just kind of like that the string resonates and you just move your finger up and down between different notes. And I thought, well, what would happen if you used a slide? And musically, technically and scientifically, if you use a slide, every time you move the note between frets, it has an infinite number of notes. I learned this from my engineering degree, that I started, that stresses have irrational numbers to calculate stresses and things like that. And I thought, oh my God, they haven't got a finite thing for, building bridges. And so there's an element of doubt, but the element of doubt is so little that it doesn't really matter. And so I realised that since, but instinctively I found the slide was like something bizarre. It's not out of tune as long as it keeps moving. So I was experimenting. A lot of songwriters, pretty much, and I'm sure John Lennon, people like that, they're saying, well, that's the rules. What if I break them? Or what happens if you don't do that and you do something else? And so I just, used the EBow so the string would keep playing and just move that slide up and down. And it had some Hendrixy things. In fact, I discovered the Hendrix sound on that song, particularly because he has a sound on Electric Ladyland that his producer, Eddie Kramer, won't reveal how he got the sound. It's kind of like this flanging, backwards reverb kind of thing. And I figured out how to get it. I just turned the tape upside down and reverbed the slide EBow guitar with a really long reverb and then put it back over the other way so that the reverb came before the actual sound. And then, actually, what I did is I reverbed that the reverb, when I put it back around, I reverbed the reverb that was already on backwards.
So reverbed
in really long.
Reverbed, yeah.
I heavily reverbed the reverse reverb. Try and say that after a few drinks.
Yeah, it's hard enough when I'm sober,
Actually, just listen to the song and it should feel the same as a few drinks, because that's what, and I realised that's how they must have done the Hendrix sound as well.
Right, yeah.
when I was a young man, I used to put on
Last week.
No, I remember putting on your solo albums and or church albums, and I'd turn all the lights off, and I'd have a glass of red wine. I'd be on my own, and I'd crank it up, and it would put me in such a great place somewhere. It actually put me somewhere else. And even when I used to go and see the church, back in the 80s, there's a number of times where I felt like I was not at the gig. I don't know what you guys were doing sound-wise, but it put me in a completely different place.
Well, my record label is called Immersion Records, and my publishing company is called World Water Music, and that's, I think the best music is immersing, the music that you want to go inside and not come out from.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I try to do. That's where I want to go, and that's where I take music. It's not entertainment, dancey, feet, body music. It's heady music, and that's I love great rhythm because you can get in that same state, like a shaman state with rhythm and great grooves as well.
Yep.
That's the only time I like it, when it's still heady. It's rhythmic and heady, and shamanic. And I've noticed, especially more recently in the last 10, 15 years, that there's guitar fans. Once upon a time, there's all these girls screaming out, "Marty, Steve," And I got my attention. Someone threw a bra on stage in the middle of, is this where, well, the funny thing was in the middle of, is this where you live, in the really slow part.
Yeah,
and I got my head down, solemnly playing the slow part of "Is this where you live?" And a black bra appeared at my feet. And I think it was Festival Hall or something like that. And it was hard not to laugh. But, and then, people have jumped up, girls have jumped up on, a girl jumped up on stage once and realised I was twice as tall as she was, and then she didn't know what to do, and then just walked off.
She's looking for a stepladder.
I suppose, I don't know. But nowadays I get people that stand right in front of me, especially guitarists and that, and they're not jumping around screaming and carrying on. I still get those people too. I get a lot more attention than I used to get. I wasn't really interested in the attention in the old days. I wasn't even happy in the band, so I suppose that didn't cultivate much joy from the audience toward me either. But these days, people are really listening, because we have a listening band, and we play long sets, 2 hours, sometimes, and 2.5. And people are listening. It's music that you listen to. You don't jump around and run out of energy, because it's buoyant in its intellectual motivation, I suppose. And so, and especially guitar players, really, they must have figured out some of the sounds I'm creating, that orchestral things I was talking about. They must have figured out it's coming from me, and because we do have keyboard players on stage, and anyone would think it's the keyboard players, but they're not. Big part of the sound, that orchestral sound, that's coming from me. But so it's immersion. That's the thing that you would, it's very buoyant. It's like like a drug.
Yeah,
like a drug.
Absolutely.
As I say, we take the drugs you don't have to take.
I appreciate that very much, because I was a track and field athlete, and music's always been my drug. But now I'm partial to a red wine. Anyway, one more track from the solo.
Well, I won't go past absinthe or really expensive French champagne that I think is so expensive because they put cocaine in it, because they use first pressing of grapes and there's no peel, and it seems like you can drink it all night, like the fashion industry do, and don't get hangovers. Yes. When the Australian dollar was strong, I did a bit of experiment with that. In America, you can get cheap French expensive champagne, but I've gone into absinthe particularly. I've thought, much to the chagrin of the band, and they kind of like, the singer had a little bit to it, but absinthe is a very, very interesting
isn't it? Yeah.
Drug, because they were staying awake. That the wormwood in it is actually such a stimulant that you don't get tired. Like, I think it was Picasso stayed awake for 10 days straight.
Yes,
wow.
Before Keith Richards ever did, and he was drinking absinthe.
Keith Richards has been awake for the last 50 years, I think.
some say he died a long time ago. He's still walking.
He's just petrified.
Maybe he's just a hologram. So there's one more song which to me sounds very Pink Floyd-ish. I hope that's a compliment. I'm a big fan, and I know you're
we
an
know
influence.
Pink Floyd. Actually, I just heard Roger Waters. He must have had one concert that he got away earlier on in January this year, and it's up. The video's up at the moment, and it's called Us and Them, the
That's
concert.
right,
But
yeah.
that song, Us and Them, if you get a chance and you want to relive that feeling of what was great about Pink Floyd at their prime with Dark Side of the Moon, that song, Us and Them, and I think it's got an augmented chord in it as well, which is kind of rare. That is a beautiful rendition of that song, and because I've lost faith in all the old stuff that I was wondering if it's, the old bands especially, they can't write them anymore, and even doing concerts now, sometimes they look like a bunch of old guys, and rather not have the memory just spoiled of what they were. But the music's so powerful that you go, yep, these guys were great then, and they're not embarrassing as old men playing it now, because it was mature, then, and it is now.
Yeah.
From memory, a lot of
much
those
like I always wanted to do.
From memory, a lot of those great chords of Pink Floyd was Richard Wright too.
Well, he wrote that song.
Yeah.
Funny,
exactly.
you must, you're very aware. And he had a degree in jazz. That's
Yes,
what
he
people
did.
don't realise.
Yes, he did.
And Hendrix is jazz as well.
Yep.
Jazz, and Burt Bacharach, that's jazz. Most people think jazz is like this honking saxophones and blues kind of things, and it's not. Jazz, for me, by definition, I call it when you use more than 3 different notes in a chord.
Yep, no, it makes complete sense.
That's my simple definition of it,
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
So the song that we've queued up here is Sublimation.
Well, that's one of my favourite, absolutely,
There you
because that's a love song. Shall I go there? I'm going to go there. Like when you're in that ecstasy of lovemaking, the ideal ecstasy state, not just like banging away like some fucking shit porn. Pardon me, you better cut that.
No, it's okay, because it's now. It will now be like 10:30 at night, so don't worry, it's all good.
Yeah,
Keep
so
going.
I hate that wham bam, thank you ma'am, or thank you bitch.
Yes.
Porn that should be made illegal, same as gambling should be made illegal, because it's immoral and it's bad for society, and it's
Agreed.
obviously the agendas of greedy rich people that control it, that it exists at all.
Yeah.
And that sublimation is the opposite. That for me, it's not Kama Sutra. It's the heady feeling of the ecstasy of that lovemaking state somehow to try, because why not?
Slipping softly by the window as we play. The ripple of the sun comes filtering in without a name. The flower in your hat transports me to a house. The flame she's by the fire. The man there thinks to die. Conversations like a beggar through narrow streets. Fingers reached and touched, a feeling never seemed so sweet. All the tears of living cascading close to the floor. Embarked upon a fever trail, great unspoken law. Of the sky, inborn melt together.
told you I try to be a romantic, didn't I?
We like it. We like it.
Yeah, no, we do.
The girls do too. I shouldn't have said that.
All right, we'll cut that bit out.
No, don't.
No, all right,
I'm
okay.
leaving that
All right,
bit
we're
in,
leaving that
yeah.
bit in. Okay, good.
Just cut out the bit that I said. Don't cut that out.
That's going in the promo.
Now, we're going...
I've got enough trouble in my life as it is. I don't need any more. But
All right.
I'm just going to stick by it. I'm unconditionally loving, and I prove that I'm not a jealous person,
Good.
and no one should be.
Indeed.
It's so unromantic. Jealousy is just so unromantic, isn't it?
I've never really understood it, to be honest, actually, that whole sort of possessive sort of nature of love, if you like, or fear.
What's your wife look like? Just kidding. You're a rock and roller, Steve. That's why I'm going to say this, because we have especially being Australians, but musicians, and we have to work with women backstage, and I don't like the sound of that, but I mean, we work with an openness. You have to have an openness,
Yes,
don't you? You know,
indeed.
they think musicians are a boys' club, and when it is, it's a horrible thing. But we're unabashed. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
Where musicians are unabashed if they're genuine.
Mm.
That's the state. Rock and roll, that's our religion, you know, and it's an unabashed honesty of looking for the truth of the best part of human beings.
Indeed. Yeah, totally agree.
Now, the
So
next...
thanks for understanding, Steve.
So the next 6 songs, you shot me an email with some selections here during the church period. The first one being A New Season, which was a live favourite for many, as I attended many church gigs. That get on the album, because you weren't getting much, early on, and that's such a great song. So was it a band decision, or what? How did all that happen? Because you started.
I think it's because the one before, from Heyday, we had some B sides. I was allowed to do a B side track, which was done at 2:00 in the morning on the last day of recording that I recorded the vocals and on that one.
Yeah.
Finished it off. Probably because it went over quite well. I can't remember, what was it called?
As
that
You
one
Will.
again? As You Will, yeah. Ornamental or, or...
Warm and gentle.
Yeah,
on the way
ornamental
to
or warm and gentle.
paradise. Yeah.
Yeah, again, that's about love and compassion. Again, ornamental or warm and gentle on the way to paradise. Again, it's like I try to combine many levels, whether it's physical, sexual, and philosophical in things. Really, that's the surrealist and psychedelic. The manifesto of psychedelia is mind expanding, and that's one of the, and poetry and wit, obviously puns, and that they try and combine two things. And the wit in songwriting, lyrically, is to combine lots of parallels. It kind of reassures you. If it rhymes, people say it must be true. It rhymes. Like there's all these marketing psychological aspects of art. Patterns, matching patterns that kind of people enjoy, and so I had quite a good reaction to that song. So, and they probably thought, let's give him another song, or I don't even know how. They weren't that into it about doing it. It was rushed through again.
Yes.
And it's too fast. I don't like how fast it was. The demo actually is probably what sold it, because it was. If you think we were a psychedelic band, the demo of A New Season is one of the most psychedelic songs you'll ever hear.
Wow.
The actual demo, I should go and get it out again, because it was slow and really a psychedelic song. And it was inspired by my wife was painting these miniatures that they used to sell. She was a street stall, artist. And she painted these miniatures that were about 2 inches by 3 inches of scenes that were called A Fifth Season. So they were just surrealist, because her and her husband were surrealist kind of artists, sculptors and stuff. So I thought, a fifth season, that was interesting. So I thought A New Season, because all the other seasons are pretty fucked. Well, nature's okay, but what we've done to them is terrible. So I thought A New Season means, we need a new season. And it was a psychedelic lyric, obviously, as you can tell. It's got a bit of religion, or not religion, pagan religion or something, or whatever. Religion is spiritual. I know religion is like a kind of a physical interpretation of the spiritual, I suppose.
Yep.
An attempt, and so I'll use that word, although I think religion's a terrible word. But and it's obviously got a love interest in there, as we all like, and I'd have to look at it to see if they had the sex aspect in there, but it won't be, the wham bam style anyway. Because that's why we're here, everyone. Sex.
Now,
it's manipulated by some big power.
Yeah, well, I think the 1% of the big power, the owners. The owners of the world, they're the ones that cause a lot of problems. So, anyway.
Who? What, the Rothschilds? I think they're just sitting back and look at everyone as naughty children. They're not racist. They own every bank in every country in the world. They can't be racist, and I don't think they're homophobic or anything like that.
No.
Sexist. I know that. Yeah, no one knows much about them.
No.
Everyone thinks, why don't they do more to stop what's going on in the world? I think they'll only do it if the world nuclear war would destroy the world. I think they was because they actually fund all of the wars anyway.
Well, and both sides.
Yes.
Yeah.
But people think we're getting mad conspiracy theories, so we might as well not continue with that one.
No, we won't. I get called. I get called.
Yeah, next thing. Yeah.
I get called a conspiracy theorist, and I just tell people I just research and like dealing with facts. So.
Yeah, just tell them to look up greenbacks and find out that they were promissory notes made by Abraham Lincoln when the Bank of England wouldn't let him print more money because it wasn't gold backed, and he got shot.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I'm not saying conspiracy. I'm just saying it's very funny that the presidents get assassinated. You can be Donald Trump and not get assassinated, but if you go and mess with the finance industry, and I think Obama realised that.
Yep.
He wanted to clean up the swamp. They said, "You really want to die?"
Yep.
Well, that means that then again that the Rothschilds run the finance industry, don't they? But I don't think so. I think they've got the same problem as politicians. There's all these people with agendas that they don't want to mess with. They just want to have a peaceful life too, like anybody.
Exactly.
They're obviously not egomaniacs because no one knows anything about them.
Indeed.
That makes me wonder that they're probably some of the good ones.
I'd like to move.
Anyway,
I'd like to move down to King Island. You know,
King Island. No,
there's 1,500 people live there. That's where I want to go.
No, you've got to stop. You have to fight. All these friends of mine in America said, can we come to America, come to Australia, or I'm going to move to Canada? I said, no, any refugees should go back and fight, like all those ones in the Arabian countries. And young men should go back and fight for the freedoms instead of the West has fought for its freedoms. Not that we really have freedoms. They get pretty disappointed when they get slaved into the work.
Exactly.
Not what they saw on TV, is it?
Exactly. Now, an album by the church called Parallel Universe, which was released the same year as After Everything Now This. So that album was different versions from some of the songs from that album, and then other songs that obviously didn't make it. Is that right? Do I have that right, or am I?
Yeah. Pretty much every time we did an album after I rejoined the band in 1998 for Hologram of Bar, we did that album, and then we did a bonus album, which was pretty much just warming up the studio and recorded in 80 minutes, that the length of the CD is. We had to edit out 1 minute to fit it on the CD, but it's actually, you could hear our writing process going on there, really, including Steve falling asleep on bass in the middle of it and then waking up and finishing off. But, he had adulterants in his system at the time, let's say. But so that was called Bastard Universe. That was a bonus disc for the first album. Then every album after that, we had kind of bonus albums because we just wrote so much. And some people actually think the bonus albums are better, like Back with Two Beats and Parallel Universe. The stuff on Parallel Universe, it just sometimes you put out an album with a certain concept, and I don't agree at all. And a lot of the fans don't agree with what ended up on the album, what ended up on the bonus album.
Yes. So
Parallel Universe was always going to be a bonus album. Then the drummer wanted to do like a remix versions of the first album. They thought it'd be a good idea to give more of a highlight, a point of difference for the actual album itself, and refresh, the ideas, and refresh that album's, awareness of its release by doing it. So he kind of did his little thing, and we put the other disc out. The second disc was actual proper songs. It should have been the other way around, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Thinking about it. But you have these factions you have to deal with in bands, and you just got to appease them, and sometimes you just got to let go of things that are a mistake, but not going to be devastating, be more devastating to fight people, really. And so I did a song, Reward, which that wasn't going to get on the album because it's about 8 minutes long. And I've never earned my right to have an 8 minute song on an album. And it's very psychedelic again. And a guy liked it so much, an American who lives in Ukraine, he did a really great video for it.
Oh, wow.
He just made a video for me for that one.
Sun,
Is that on YouTube?
Special effects. Yeah, it's actually on my peterkoppes.com. In fact, he helped me. My website was so unattended and that someone did for me for free too. He just updated it at once and chucked two. He did 2 videos. He did one for Appalachia, which is another song that you're going to play, isn't it?
Yes,
and that one
correct,
was about that one's about my more recent partner.
Yes.
Who she got stoned one night in Byron Bay, and that's about her in that state. Appalachia is such a beautiful high, you know?
Appalachia, you're such a beautiful high. At the gates of a pale blue desire, cloudy in my memory, like one long moment can be, such a godly gift. Turning favor on, every day I'm watching you, learning a love song. In this way it's changing you. Fascination, your secrets alive. In the ascending, brings on an ultimate smile. Water in the lamplight, danced along the shared night, singing with the starshine until the morning sunlight. Burning slowly on, every day I'm missing you. Yearning not for long, every way I'm getting you. You're such a beautiful high, such a beautiful Water in the lamplight, danced along the shared night, singing with the starshine until the morning sunlight. Journey up and on, every day becoming you. Learning as you play, on this day becoming you. You're such a beautiful shelter, someone must have built it. Never have I felt it, river like a delta.
So just while we're watching the website, by the way, the website's looking fantastic. I was on there before, and it's one
Which
of the
one?
better websites.
Your website.
Your personal website.
My solo, peterkoppes.com,
Yeah.
because I'm still in the process of updating it. I have to do it myself because this other guy was helping me, but I don't want to impinge upon his time too much. So I just updated the bios for the Syncretism release, of course, so that at least the bio's up to date and the discography's up to date. But there's some unwieldy kind of things in that. But thanks very much for the compliment. It had a lot of time. A fan of me, the church, but particularly me, from Melbourne, actually.
Yeah.
She lives in Kilby Street, ironically.
Right.
She and I've since realised that maybe she had a friend who runs, who's a representative for Crazy Domains in Australia or something, because she seems to have been, I've been going into the back end of the website and realised that this woman who's the representative, who's a friend of the Kilby Street girl, has gone and probably did the work for her.
Right.
So, and there was a lot of work in there, and they set up a blog and everything. So I do have my fans, and they're really, I really appreciate them, and really, that people think it's like Donald Trump, he only likes people who like him, but I really these people are obviously very talented too, as you can tell from what they've done.
Yeah.
Who care about me and do and look after me.
The album Uninvited, Like the Clouds, from when was that? 2000? I can't remember. I haven't got it written down here. But
it might have been. I think it's later.
no, it is later. It is, about 2005.
2006.
2000. There you go. 2005.
April
2006.
17th, to be precise.
And another long track, 6 minutes and 13, Never Before.
Yeah, I was lucky to get that one on there. But see, the band wrote that, and I thought it was fantastic. It was epic. Like Steve playing the strings on the keyboard, and that's a really Pink Floydy track if there ever was one. But
yes.
Pink Floyd, if you haven't got Pink Floyd anymore and you don't, that's really Pink Floyd. And I was really surprised when Steve didn't want to sing on it.
Yeah.
And neither did Marty, actually. So I snatched it. By that time I was going, I better grab what I want, anyway. And so I did that. But I've been running out of things to write about. As I said, I stopped doing solo records when I didn't have anything to write about. So I wrote Appalachia about, a woman, the woman. And I wrote Never Before about the Sunshine Coast, because I moved out of Sydney with my partner to the Sunshine Coast, and it rains when it's sunny and it rains at the same time up here, and it was also a kind of a sanctuary from the traffic in Sydney, which I knew was going to get probably worse, and which I've since realised for me bothers me more than it seems to bother other people. And I knew all the shortcuts in Sydney. It's very easy, to avoid most of the traffic because the roads are a mess, but if you know your way around.
Yeah.
But I think traffic and the people's attitude in traffic is an expression of the status quo, of the status of the mindset of humanity. There's selfishness, their impatience, their rudeness, their aggressiveness, or some of them are actually very considerate. And I actually drive at very, very considerately, not timid or, which people would think anyone who's a quiet person is a timid person, but they're not necessarily. They can have a strength, and a patience that mostly is misinterpreted. That's why people vote for Trump, because he seems powerful. They don't realise the weakness and the insecurity of him, really. Yeah. They just think, he must be really confident if he's that aggressive. And that's what I'm hoping the world will realise. These right-wing people are very insecure, actually, and not strong. And they're self-absorbed, And so I see that in traffic, and that's why I moved to the Sunshine Coast, and I wrote that song, Never Before. Again, it's got lots of levels, a portal, left untried. Maybe that's the sanctuary. But I lived in the Blue Mountains, which was a sanctuary as well. But this is warm and subtropical up here, so up here it's very special. Everyone's moving here too now, so the traffic's getting really bad, and I might have to, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of Victorians moving that way at the moment.
Well, Steve,
is there life on Mars? Apparently there's life on Mars, so there's
find you not tonight. Even filmed in grey at a matinee. It's like never before. Day breaks, a sign for many whose work is not in vain. Worthless without any, but measured not by gain. A game that all are winning as they guided down destiny lane. Like never before. Like never before. Like never before. Leave a portal left, we tried. Find you not tonight. Even filmed in grey at a matinee. It's like never before.
It's funny, I moved down to the Mornington Peninsula 4 years ago, and I was saying to my dad, who's 91, and I said to him, it's like living in the 70s. I love it down here, you know. And
that's what it was exactly like here. It reminded me of Canberra, and I'm not saying the racist thing, but there was only that white, you know, mentality. It is actually a bit of the bubble belt up here, but that 70s feeling. It was like a nostalgia, and it's not so much now. It's much more. There's Chinese people and Indian people here now. I haven't seen so many Arabs and things like that. But there is a big philosophical question about whether I believe in multiculturalism, and that's what Australia is and what represents it. But it's caused in Sweden. They started realising there's problems with it because they. I know this is the question: if it's a racism or just a natural tendency for people to be around their own types. And
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the big question in the world today.
A very big question.
So up here, it was interesting to see the changes, as an adult rather than as a child in Canberra, because it developed in Canberra too as multiculturalism. I'm from Victoria too, by the way.
Is that right?
Yeah, I really believe that Aussie rules, we sort of upset everyone, talk about motivational reasoning, that Aussie rules is a really artistic sport, and a lot of them aren't.
Yeah. That game's changed a lot though. So over the years,
yeah, a lot of injuries too. Let's not go there. I don't watch sport. I'll watch a good game. I have no interest in sport really. Neither do any of the Beatles. So I'm in good company.
There you go.
Oh, did I? So there you go. I'm in good company too.
Well, two of them anyway.
Yeah, two of them are dead. So,
Yeah. Speaking of which, I got a quiz for you just quickly. John Lennon's birthday today, and he would have been 80. But there's only 4 people that are alive that were on the front cover of Sgt. Pepper's. Do you know who those 4 are that are still with us?
Well, I'm not into trivia, and I'm not. I actually know. Recently learned about a lot of the people that were on the cover and that.
Yeah.
But just for fun, who are they?
Okay, so Paul and Ringo are obviously still alive, and I got
No, Paul isn't. The conspiracy theory is that Paul isn't alive.
Sorry,
Not that
Billy
I believe it, but-
Billy Shears is alive.
Yeah. I know some very intelligent people who think that who love their conspiracy theories and they think he's not alive.
Right. Oh well, I don't know what to believe anymore, but what I can tell you is that the artist known as Paul McCartney, who might in fact be Billy Shears, and Richard Starkey, also known aka Ringo Starr. That's 2 of them, so there's 50%. Bob Dylan, Robert Zimmerman is still with us, and the 4th one
and
I didn't.
Thankfully, because he's made a great record recently, Bob Dylan, a romantic record in his 80s. How to beat that?
Yeah, I know. I
He's
bought it.
almost
It's good.
80, isn't he?
Yeah, it's.
Is he 78? Or how old is he now?
Oh, I think he's older.
78, I think.
Really? Well, we'll look that up.
I think Leonard Cohen's over 80, I think, or was.
Was,
but
yes.
Yeah, who's the last person?
Dion.
Dion Warwick.
Yeah, no.
Warwick.
No. Dion. 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 He was a bit of a rocker in the early 60s, sort of pop star, Dion. Anyway.
That's punishment, not to get recognised all this time, still be alive.
Bob Dylan is currently 79 years of old.
There you go. Well done.
79. Yeah.
And
happy birthday, Bob.
And apparently John Lennon wanted a couple of different people on the front cover, but he was told no. One was Adolf Hitler, the other was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful. It's still like we're supposed to be out of the sexual permissive era, and I thought I've been waiting for the death permissive era to be fully going by now.
Yes.
But the idea of the fact that Germany is the strongest economy in Europe might have a direct lineage to the fact that Adolf Hitler revolted against the Treaty of Versailles, and everyone in the politics knew that they would have to retaliate and that it was a bad treaty. And we know he turned into a terrible person. He was apparently on methamphetamine and he might not have been a very nice person in the first place, but he certainly cultivated a lot of support at first, and then it went all horribly wrong, as what quite often might happen to anybody given that much power, maybe.
Yes.
So there I've said it, and I'll probably get attacked for being an anti-Semite or something now.
Well,
but I did say the Rothschilds are all right, so they're Jews.
Exactly.
The other family's Dutch apparently, or there's 2 other families. One of them's Dutch, and I'm Dutch too. So.
Well, if you're not Dutch, you're not much.
I'm Dutch and German actually, so I've got both sides there.
Yeah. So in 2009, again, you're referring to, these recording sessions and extra material and so forth, but there was an EP, Pangaea, or is that Pangaea? Pangaea?
It's Pangaea was
Pangaea.
Gone Wonderland was Australia. Pangaea was in all the continents combined, including Gone Wonderland was attached to Africa, and the whole lot together was called Pangaea.
Yes.
Or Pangaea. I don't know. Who's to say? People say H instead of H these days.
Yes.
You're not allowed to criticise them, So
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can be pedantic. But you are supposed to say, if you use a French word, you're supposed to say it with a French accent, apparently. And so any word, you're supposed to status quo. That's a Latin word. I don't know how the Latin people would have, or the Romans would have said that back then. But Pangaea, no one was around back when they invented the word. I know it's probably a Greek word, isn't it?
I don't know.
You have to ask someone in Melbourne. There's more Greeks in Melbourne than anywhere in the world.
That's right. Apart from Athens. That's it. That's right.
Yeah, Pangaea. It's a great concept, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
Pangaea.
Indeed. So there's a track on that, LLC. What's that one all about?
Well, I got attacked for writing stuff about my family,
Yes.
As I said, my wife, people, that From the Well album, because I had my wife singing on it and my kids on 2 tracks, 1-year-old and 2-year-old, I got flack. It was released by TVT in America, and they really promoted it well around America, and I got attacked for impersonating John Lennon by having, I don't think he even had his family on his records ever, but they interpreted me as being like a John Lennon wannabe, because I had my family. Maybe because of the Yoko Ono thing, that he was destroyed, the Beatles were destroyed by Yoko Ono. Yet John and Yoko, and this is even more profound being today's birthday, let's remember John and Yoko were the greatest romance since Romeo and Juliet and maybe Victoria and Albert. I don't know, do you think of any other great romances? Because John was a very unhappy, miserable person, and until he met Yoko, and then he apparently was going to credit her with writing Imagine, the lyrics, especially all the ideology, because he was complaining, about most things. Well, he wrote some beautiful songs in my life, and he was fantastic. Then he wrote, Help, and he was getting kind of pretty upset before he met Yoko Ono, and then he found another human being who inspired him, and he wasn't bored with. He was bored with everybody else, and very, very powerful. And so he met his muse, and are we all much better for it, aren't we? We are. So all the criticisms of Yoko Ono are unfounded, really. They thought she sounded crazy, and she was, when she sang, but she was imitating a lead guitar with her voice, and she was Japanese, she had a different culture. And if I went to Japan recently, I thought they wouldn't think much of it, but I've been more blown out by that than anything. Like I love Cuba, and because they have dignity, and I love Vanuatu because that's a tribal dignity, and I love the Vietnamese because they beat America and they've got a sense of dignity, and it's supposed to be communist, but it's a free enterprise communism. And Japan, I thought, it's the first world economy, it's the third biggest economy in the world. I thought they're going to be greedy, dog people as much as anybody, and supposedly, because of the Second World War, they were ruthless, right wing. But you go there, the most humble, decent, respectful, dignified society in the world. Yeah, and she was brought up, although she was an elitist in finance, and those people are a league of their own anyway. And I think her parents were probably. I've got a lot of studies on psychopaths and narcissists because I've been surrounded by them, and I'm not going to go into that too much. But they're very similar. The difference between a psychopath and a narcissist is a psychopath will apologise just so they can get rid of you and go and somewhere else and cause their damage, whereas a narcissist will stand their ground and go down in flames defending something that they probably even know is untrue, but their ego is at stake by admitting it. Yeah. So that's the one difference between them. So I think Trump's the psychopath, but I'm not sure about Yoko Ono, and I'm not even sure about John Lennon because he was in pain and didn't spend a lot of time with Julian. If you listen to Julian, so I know you love my dad, but he wasn't a very good father. So and Yoko was kept from her daughter by the father who thought that she was a bad mother. But then there's drugs and all that stuff around that people, thought made people unreliable.
I actually
you know, some people take drugs rather than killing themselves, and so which is more brave, to take drugs and stay alive or kill yourself?
Yeah, true. I actually thought she was before her time artistically. I think John saw that, you know.
I don't really like her music, but I do. You know what I think? John Lennon, she was the only woman who was not intimidated by him because she was probably a psychopath or a narcissist, and she dared let her songs be put on Double Fantasy next to his because she was in her own world, which I think is what he liked, that she was not intimidated by him.
Yeah.
But I don't like her songs particularly. Some of that.
I actually like some of her art pieces more than some of
Yeah, that's what I like.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic artist, and that's what was the brilliant combination between Lennon and Yoko.
Yeah.
He was a best musician by double anyone who's come before or after him. You know, anyone before or after him. I've got the proof. You know, in his as I say, I've been studying music theory and science, and I know I could prove the science of why he's different than anybody else. There's a whole musical idiom that he created, which is a naive idiom they have no music theory that can address it simply. And I call it a limbo idiom. And she was like, she inspired him because she wasn't really competing with him because she was an artist. And yet he was a writer, but I wouldn't call his writing. Would you call it writing? You know, these books in his own right. Apparently he couldn't even spell very well.
I've got that book, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, I've read it a couple of times in the past.
Yeah, there's two books, in his own right, and the other one is just his humour, you know, having a bit of a fun with words. But he got serious when he met her. He started writing serious music, and he's been a big influence on me, obviously. And everyone says he's a big influence, but I don't actually even understand the true depth. But I feel sorry for him. Him and Gandhi, big peace activists, and they both got shot. I'm going to take someone with me when I go, I fucking tell you. But beware, when you fucking come after me and my peace activism, I'll fucking take you with me.
I think John's books, though, were like stream of consciousness sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So I tell you, Bob Dylan, you think Bob Dylan's a good writer, but that tarantula is trash. That's just a terrible thing. I don't know. And, you know, everyone thinks Bob Dylan and John Lennon, you know, are up there. John Lennon, I think Bob Dylan would admit John Lennon is even beyond him as an artist.
charm. You wander around with an angel's own calm. Your glee catches on when you pound on a drum.
Now, we've got one more track to discuss and then play, but interestingly, it is not the church, but it is the church. It's Reformation, which was an album that came out in 1990.
Reformation sounds like it has drugs involved, but it's Reformation.
Sorry, Reformation. Reformation.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Yeah, no, there's a bit of a joke there because we misspelled it as well, so it's hard to read it properly. We kind of put a colon in the middle of it, so it's not reformation, but it's actually a joke on the reformation of the church. In, after the Middle Ages or post-Renaissance kind of Reformation.
Yeah.
And because it's obviously a joke, if you're going to have a band called the Church, which is either a good or a really bad name, depending on what you think about. It's supposed to be cheeky, actually. It's supposed to stick it to religion a little bit. And then the Reformation, we doubled, the problem by calling it. It wasn't very successful because it wasn't called the Church either. So,
yes.
The Reformation. I mentioned before that Steve from the Church and the drummer, the new drummer from the Church after
Richard.
The other three drummers. We had three drummers.
That's right. You did too. J.D. Doherty. Yes, I forgot.
Yeah, from Patti Smith.
Yeah.
And the original drummer who was only on the first album.
Yes.
So it was, Tim was the fourth drummer, and he was Steve's studio engineer. Steve owned a studio, and he's Steve's house engineer. So we just went in there and spent 2 weeks making a record in the box, so to speak, or it wasn't even a digital computer studio. But there was a lot of electronics used in it. So that was like a studio album to take advantage of the power of the tools of a recording studio to write music.
Incredible.
And that set the music, in the biography of Steve's No Certainty Attached, that guy reckons that was the new direction for the Church, and then when Marty joined, he joined the Reformation really because there was a whole new sound for the band.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And there's a track there, She Comes In Singing, which I think's fantastic. Love it.
Yeah.
Very Pink Floydish guitar on that track.
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go.
What you deserve. You gotta ride the curve. Got a face like Raphael. like Florentine, and a lot that's in between.
That was the danger. We try not to sound like Pink Floyd, but if there is ever, they don't sound like Pink Floyd anymore either. So, someone's got to do it.
And one of the greatest album titles of all time as well. Pharmacoi.
Pharmacoi?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Distance crunching honchos with echo, and I've run out of room here to actually...
Echo unit. Yeah,
echo unit, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, distance crunching honchos with echo units, which is pretty much the manifesto of what? It's actually a lyric from one of the songs, but
yes.
It's actually the manifesto of what we're doing. The Pharmacoi, they're the Aztec spiritual priests, pharmacists.
Yes.
I suppose. Yeah, because they used to use adulterants.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look,
Cactus,
Peter,
mm-hmm.
we've come to we've been talking for close to 2 hours, and it's a 2-hour program, so we don't have to do.
There won't be any music.
But see, the good thing about our program is we can turn it into 3 hours or 2.5 hours. So, mm-hmm. And then of course we've got part 2 discussing the new band.
Mm.
Well,
okay, I'll let you guys go and
thank you.
Really go to, and we'll do the syncretism one, and then
All right, Peter. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, see you.
Okay, all the best.
Thanks,
Take
mate.
care. Bye.